Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining SolidCAD and Bluebeam for this wonderful webinar on takeoffs. So I'm just going to give you guys a quick introduction of who's on the call here. My name is Dan Coogan. I'm the account executive here at SolidCAD for many years, and I'm here with my co-host, Meredith Young from Bluebeam, who's going to be doing the presentation and demo of the Bluebeam for takeoffs and estimations. If you guys have any questions, please use the chat module here on the GoToWebinar, and we'll try to do our best to answer them throughout the presentation. If there's anything that's a little bit of a long-winded answer, we'll kind of whiteboard it and answer it at the end. I'm going to give you a quick overview of who SolidCAD is, and then I'm going to pass the mic over to Meredith, who's going to start the presentation. So if you're not familiar with SolidCAD, we are primarily an Autodesk partner, and we do have a substantial team of technical resources. And we're also a Bluebeam Gold partner, which is our second bestseller in our company. We've been supporting Bluebeam for almost a decade now. We have a lot of experience on the sales, on the technical and support side. So if you are looking to increase your Bluebeam use, if you need training, you definitely can reach out to SolidCAD. We have local offices in Vancouver, Calgary, Saskatoon, Edmonton as well. Toronto, Montreal, and Halifax as well. So, and Quebec City. So you can definitely reach out to one of our local reps who can help you with your Bluebeam investment. So our company's actually grown from 75. We're actually closer to 80 now, and we've been around for quite some time. Different companies have been acquired and grown from there. We support different industries, everything from architecture, engineering, construction to some of the middle markets of building manufacturers and manufacturing as well. We have some capabilities on the visualization side. So we cover a lot of different grounds in the Canadian Autodesk market. And looking at Bluebeam, we cover a lot of different customers who are using Bluebeam. We've seen a lot coming from the AC market, but also some of those middle ground gray markets that don't typically are AC. They're more of suppliers are just using PDFs on a day-to-day basis, so they need a better solution to handle their digital paper workflows. And again, we are Canadian. We only operate in Canada. All our staff and technical resources are located here in Canada. So we don't outsource anything for our service or anything like that. Everything is done locally here in Canada. Next slide. Cool. Aside from Bluebeam services, we have a lot of other services that expand on the Autodesk BIM side, which is perfectly integrating into the Bluebeam solution as well. A growing service in the programming and automation team. We have data management, collaboration for Revit or AutoCAD, everything from simulation with Inventor, Professional, or Moldflow, or any of the other services. And Scan to BIM, a big growing component of our business. The ability to capture existing conditions using either the Matterport solution that we've launched about a month and a half ago, or using some of the higher end LiDAR systems like Faro or Trimble. Cool. Next slide. Some of the other partner products that we support, you probably are familiar with. You probably have bought them from us, but this is just a short list of our primary big sellers. So Bluebeam, Autodesk, Matterport, Lumion Chaos, and Blue Cello for data management. Cool. Next slide. Cool. So actually, now I'm going to pass the mic over to Meredith. She's going to take us through Bluebeam Revu 2017, understand how to do proper takeoffs faster, better with Revu. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan, and thank you so much to everybody who has shown up today. As Dan mentioned, my name is Meredith. I'm a technical manager here at Bluebeam. I originally was an audiovisual consultant, so I did a lot of subcontractor or specialty contractor work, depending on how you may like to identify out there, or how you might identify those of us who do specialty contracting. And I did quite a few takeoffs and estimates and bids, so I know a lot of the challenges that are inherent in the process. And today, what I really want to do is to help all of you perform your takeoffs faster, so that you can create bids faster and win more jobs, because ultimately that's our goal, right? We've got to get out there, we've got to win the work. So today we're going to look at how Bluebeam Revu 2017 can help you do all of that. Now, for those of you who own Revu and you own a previous version, I will be showing a couple of features that are unique to version 2017. SolidCAD will be able to help you out with any upgrades or questions you have about getting the new version of the software. Now, finally, before we get started, as Dan mentioned, we have that lovely question window. Please type your questions into there. I will pause occasionally just to give them a quick check to see if there's anything we can answer quickly. Otherwise, what we'll do is at the end of the webinar, we will actually do a live Q&A. So stick around if you're available. And if you're not, don't worry, this is being recorded. So you can contact SolidCAD after the webinar. It'll take a little bit for us to get it out to them and for them to get it uploaded, but they'll be able to provide you with a recording of today's webinar. Also, if I go a little fast through something, you can rewatch it again, or of course, get some training from the team at SolidCAD. They're well equipped to help you out. And that was the wrong button. Here we go. It's a little early here in California. It's still only 10 a.m. So my apologies if it looks like I need a little more caffeine to get moving. Before we get into today's presentation, a quick note about our company, Bluebeam. I know you've been through a lot of these, so we're going to make it really quick. Bluebeam is your global project partner. And we really develop innovative technology solutions that set the standard best for collaboration and workflow efficiency for AEC professionals worldwide, as you can see here. With us, it's really about partnerships. And our goal is to partner with our customers and with the industry to really figure out what the pain points are and implement solutions that will help you do your jobs faster. Every feature that you see today for Takeoffs, especially the new ones in 2017, were developed based on feedback from contractors and specialty contractors just like you. So really important to think about everything here. If there's something you see where you wish it did something different, let us know. We're really trying to innovate all the time. Now, our solution is based on the PDF file format. And for those of you who don't know, the PDF file format is an open file format that can be shared with anyone. And any PDF that you receive that follows that PDF ISO standard file format will open in Revu, and you can perform your takeoffs on it. Now, some PDFs are smarter than others, and the PDFs that get made by Revu are really their packages. They're not just flat sheets of paper. They contain a lot of information that will help you with your takeoffs. And we'll look at some of that information that will be helpful as you perform your takeoffs to speeding up the work that you do. Now, today we are going to focus on takeoffs that span a variety of specialty trades. I'm not going to focus on any single one of these, but we're going to look at different takeoffs and different tools that you can use for all of these. I apologize if I don't give an exact use case for what you do, but hopefully you can see how these different tools will apply to everything that you do in your specific trade or your company as a whole. So let's get into it. I told you I'd keep the slides short on my end. What we're looking at today is we're looking to cover 5 things. First, we're going to look at how you set yourself up for success and make a setup and an interface that will make you successful. Then we're going to dig into the measurement tools that are available to you so that you know the different tools that you have and what you can do with those tools to perform better takeoffs. After that, we're going to customize and share tool sets so that we can see how we can then save tools with all the properties we want so they're much easier to use in the future. Then we're going to look at this feature you may not have seen in the Revu interface if you're already a Revu user, called the markups list, which tracks all of your takeoffs, all of your measurements, and stores that data so that we can do more with it. And then finally, we're going to take that data and we're going to export it to Excel. We'll talk about how you can build your estimates in Revu, but if you're like me, your bid sheets are all in Excel. My bid sheets were. So really important to be able to get all of that data out quickly and easily, and we'll talk about that today too. Now, through this all, we are going to talk about some best practices for the estimation process. So during the setup section, we're going to talk about customizing our interface, doing some work calibrating our documents, building out some custom columns, and putting some layers into our documents. So we're going to look at that all. Then as we do our takeoffs, along with the measurement tools and the tool sets, we're going to talk about some tips and tricks for using these tools. And then finally, as we go through the creation of our estimates, we'll talk about how we do that both in the markup list and in Excel through a feature called Quantity Link, which is new for Revu 2017. So These will be the best practices we get through. We'll review this once again at the very end, just as a quick reminder of what we covered today. So let's get into review, because what you guys want to see today is how we're going to make your takeoffs faster. And what you'll notice off the front is that my review interface may or may not look like yours if you've got it open. And if you haven't seen it before, this is a review interface. We got menus across the top. They bring down a variety of different commands. For example, I can click markup. I get markup commands, measure, and I get measurement commands. Now, along with, sorry, a little cough here. Along with the commands that you see across the top, we also have access to tools on the side here. And this configuration of the interface that you see here is based on what's known as a profile. So here in our view, we've got our profile manager. Profiles are configurations of tools that are built to help us do our work better. There is, for example, a construction profile here for the construction process. It shows the tools that are most likely to be used, for example, on a constructability review, or when reviewing an RFI or submittal. Coming back over to my takeoff profile, you'll notice my takeoff profile has tools that I'm going to use on a takeoff, and it maximizes my screen real estate. Because when I'm performing takeoffs, I like to have a lot of screen real estate. This is built into review. We will talk, though, as we perform our setup, as to how you're going to customize this to make your job even easier. So now that we've got an idea of where the tools are that we're going to find, we're either going to find them up here in our menu and command bar, or here on the right in our toolbars. Let's open a document and take care of our setup. So I've got this blank material takeoff page. It is completely blank. We've not done anything with this yet. And there's a couple of things that we're going to want to set up on this in order to perform our takeoff. The first thing right off the bat is that we want to calibrate our document. Now, calibration, which we can also access, I'm going to go to tab access and measurements here in our measurement tab. You'll notice I've got calibrate here and I've got calibrate here. This calibrate function allows us to either type in a scale over here or to actually pick 2 points on the page and calibrate to those points. As a best practice, you want to pick the longest measurement that you have available on the page. It'll give you the most accurate results. So this is 23 feet, 10.5 inches. And I apologize for those of you who work in metric. Here in California, I use the imperial system, so you're stuck with my imperial system today. So I'm going to take a reference measurement now. That looks like I've got my area measurement selected, so let me take my length measurement. It always likes to pick the last measurement tool that I used. And double clicking here, it looks like my accuracy and precision is just a little off. I'm going to a full inch instead of a half inch because my precision is at 1, but let's go ahead, let's change that to half. Try this again, take that length again, and we should now get our half inch here. Perfect, 23.5 inches. So when we calibrate, we want to make sure we've got our precision set properly. And we have, of course, our right scale here. For example, if I wanted to do this in metric, I could change this to centimeters or feet and inches. We could change those over to meters, and we can sort of change around the calibration there and what units we use. You'll notice I've got quite a variety of units available to me in here. Another quick note on calibration, for those of you who do any civil engineering work where you have separate X and Y axes, you can actually use a separate vertical scale as well and have it automatically update your takeoffs with that, which is pretty cool. So we have our document scaled, and with this button, Store Scale and Page, the scale is now stored with the document. So every time we open the document, it's going to have the right scale. So let's go ahead. I'm going to save this blank material takeoff. Just click Save. Don't need to save as. And here we go. I now have this saved with the correct scale applied. The next thing that you're going to want to do before you get into any of your estimation work is you're going to want to come through and you're going to want to set up any custom columns you want. Now we're going to talk more about the markups list once we're actually performing takeoffs. You'll notice it got our length takeoff here. But what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to come through and turn on and off all of the columns that we want. And then as well, take care of any custom columns we need. What you're going to notice, and let me drag this closed a little, I'm going to click this Manage Columns button here. And under Custom Columns, I have 2 custom columns already set up on this document. My first column is a choice column. My choice column here has a variety of different items that I pre-set up. This is something I actually imported. I can import an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file. I imported them. I had a column that said item, a column that said subject, and a column that said number. And it went ahead and imported them with all of that information. Now,
hey, Meredith,
subject, yep.
Can I just jump in and just say one tip?
Yep.
One thing I like to do is like setting up my columns in Bluebeam itself and then exporting the template and then filling it in with your own product catalog. So what I've seen a lot of people have asked is who's going to set it up? Setting up your columns is relatively simple. You just need to go through creating one template and just everything else will dump in later.
Great tip. Yeah, so once you get your template set up, it's very easy to just drop this in for every project you work on or to update any of these numbers because you can import the new numbers. One note here that I want to point out, this subject here, the subject is going to determine what measurements our option shows up for. So make sure that you give this a nice broad name because what we're going to do is we set up our tools instead of our measurement tools is we're actually going to give them names that match. So for any area measurements that are related to flooring, we're going to call them flooring so that we can see carpet and tile options for them. So we're going to go ahead and do that as we get together. So just something to note there. I also have this formula column that I pre-set up, and we'll talk more about formulas later and how the formulas work for us if we want to do our estimates within Revu. But just something to keep in mind is the ability to set those up, and you'll want to do this all in advance. The reason you do it in advance, and you can, once you've set these up, you can export them and then import them onto new documents. But the other reason to do this in advance is that we can save this to our profile, and any new PDF that doesn't have custom columns that we bring in to Revu, we can actually, when we have that profile set, it will actually apply these columns to that document. So it'll have everything set up for us before we get started. A little work on this end saves us a lot of time and energy on the back end. So really important to go ahead and make sure we've got those all set up. The final thing that we're going to want to do for our setup is we're going to want to set up our layers. So here, again, all of these things that you see me pulling out of side panels is available in Tab Access. So here's the layers. And what layers allows us to do is as we set up layers, we can now start assigning tools to those layers and then be able to turn them on and off so that we have easier visibility of the things that we want to see on the page, especially for performing multiple takeoffs. So for example, if we're going to be doing flooring takeoffs and we're going to be doing, maybe we're taking care of our subflooring takeoffs with this and we're doing crown molding, and we've also got to be taking care of the wall area for our paint, right? We may have multiple measurements of the exact same room, depending on how we want to do that. So if we are in fact taking multiple measurements of the exact same room, we'll want to have them on layers so we can turn them on and off and see just the information we want. So I'm going to just create a new layer real quick. So this one will be called flooring. And I'm going to create another one called crown molding. I believe there's a U in there. And once again, with the cough here, my apologies. So now we have our layers set up that we can take our measurement tools and apply our measurement tools to as we go through. Now I mentioned that these are all things that we're going to set up in advance. We set up the tools that we need. We set up the layers we want here. The final thing for us to set up is going to be that profile I was mentioning with the interface. We can customize these profiles. Of course, our custom columns can be applied to that profile. And as we choose the tools we want, for example, down here on the right-hand side, I've got some toolbars. They have some measurement tools in them. And I've got my dynamic fill down here with my cutouts, which I'm going to use quite a bit today. But let's say, for example, that in addition to all of the tools that we see here, I actually wanted to also have maybe one of the markup tools, because I do occasionally place text boxes as I go through to note different things about the takeoff I'm performing. I could take that text box, I can use this little pin tool, and I can actually drop it onto whichever of these toolbars I want. So if I were to put this, for example, onto my measurement toolbar, there's our text tool there. You can come through and customize this as you want. You can turn things on and off. Maybe you just want to see the measurement tools. You don't want to see all of the text tools. So this is all you're going to use. And at this point, you would come back into view, come back, save the profile, and you could either save over the default or just create a new one. So clicking the add button here, you could create a new profile very easily. Now, one of the things that my team has done in setting up this document for me to perform these takeoffs is that my team has created a profile. That profile, by the way, just to show you, that profile that they did, they took it, they selected it from this profile manager up here, clicked on the guy with the bow tie, selected it, hit the export button, and then what they did is they actually attached it to the document. And the way that you attach a profile to the document is really cool. Here under markup, you've got this attachment tool. All you have to do is pick that profile. So for example, I have somewhere in here some custom tools and a custom MEP profile. I'm going to select that file. I'm going to drop it right there. And now I have that MEP profile. I can come through here in my properties. I can use the file icons. That's how we got it to look like that. And then I can show the file name. And there we go. I've got that profile added to this document. They, however, gave me advanced materials. I double-clicked on advanced materials. I have preloaded it into this instance of Revu. And now when I click advanced materials, note that I now have all of the tools that my team wants me to use for this particular takeoff, okay? So my team has given me all the tools that I need to do this takeoff. This setup work is crucial because once you're set up, you've got a lot of flexibility with what you can do with your group, because we can now have everybody working together on the same tools. So let's get into actually doing that work. We've already calibrated our page. We know we've got the right calibration. We've got all the tools that we need between the different sides. I, however, am going to come up to the measurement section here because I prefer to access my tools here from the command bar. It's a personal preference. And that way I can show you all of the different tools that we have to work with today. So I'm going to come down here into this section with our vestibule, the elevator, EMR, and the electrical room, and go ahead and perform a couple of different takeoffs for us pretty quickly. Now we have all of the tools that you would standardly see for, or you would think of seeing for a takeoff. So for example, I've got area tools. I can click and drag and get a quick square, or I can click points. And I want you to notice, I'm going to zoom in here. I want you to notice that the cursor centers onto the center point of the line. That's because this is one of those smart PDFs I was telling you about that Revu creates. These smart PDFs are called vector PDFs, and vector PDFs have additional information that are within the vector lines of the document, which make it very easy for the software to know where it's going. Now, in addition to having all of this intelligent information built in, that makes it very easy to click and drag and get all of my points here as I take my area or were to take a perimeter. If I choose content, I can snap to then any of the content, including the center of some of these rounded lines. So it makes it very easy for me to get my takeoffs of exactly what I need to take off. Now, before we get into anything too fancy, I do want to show you a couple of the other tools. So we've got our area tool. Along with area, we've got a volume tool, which includes a height capability. So I'm just going to take the volume of this EMR room. And I'm not going to worry too much about being accurate. I could click the points, but I'm just going to be super quick here. We can also take cutouts. So what we can do is we can actually either take a polygon or an ellipse and cut it out. Now this is great if you have skylights that you're measuring, right? You're going to be using glass for the skylight. So you want to take the skylight out of the entire measurement, but you'd like to have a full measurement of the roof. So you just measure the roof, and then you put in your circles for your skylights. Same things if you've got an ellipse, not an ellipse, sorry. I was going to pick the polygon this time. You have a polygon, maybe it's this really cool like diamond shape because the architect had like this really cool idea. Actually, it's got 5 sides. Don't worry about the numbers today and the shapes. I'm clearly a little off. But notice that it takes that out of the square footage. And every time that we add something, we're updating that square footage in real time with the cutouts here. Okay. Now, in addition to having the ability to do areas, volumes, we can also do perimeters. So we can catch the perimeter of the room too. So there's our full perimeter. We have this cool new tool. This is new for Review 2017. I do want to show it out. By the way, that ellipse for the cutout also new for Review 2017. But this new tool is our Polylink tool. And the Polylink tool is really cool. When I did AV work, what we often did, right, is we'd string speakers back through a venue. And I'd have to go through and I'd have to figure out what each run of cable was going to be and then what the total run of cable that we needed to order was. And I did that one at a time. Well, with Polylink, I actually get that running count. So I am just coming through to the center points of the sinks here to get the pipes to go to the center points. One more here and one more here. What you're going to notice is it gives us the total run of pipe. So as I shift, I'm going to shift and click. That allows us to move the measurement. By the way, shift and click on any measurement allows you to move it. So we're going to just clean this up so that you can see all of the different measurements that I've got associated with this, right? So the total measurement, 20 feet, 2.5 inches. But I've got 4 feet, 3.5 inches here, 3 feet, 10.5 inches here, 4 feet, 3.5 inches here, 3 foot, 9.5 inches here, and 3 foot, 11.5 inches here. So now I know exactly what I'm looking for in terms of the lengths of pipes that need to go between each of these sinks, but I also have the total length of pipe that I need to connect all of the sinks together. We could do this all around a room. And then once we're done with the actual bid, we've got the job, it's won. Well, now we can go ahead and we can actually split these all into separate pieces. And what you're going to notice is I now have individual measurements. I can select them one at a time. And I can go ahead, as we look at the markups list later, we'll look at how we can track the status of installation of those pipes using just the information we have here. I'm going to undo this though. I do want to have that all combined together and show you just a couple of more measurement tools along with some of the cool properties we have associated and some of the tips and tricks we have for using them. I do want to show the length tool one more time because the length tool, as you notice, does pick those points. But we can actually pick points on a 45-degree angle. So if I hit the shift key, you'll notice now that it does either straight lines or on a 45-degree angle wherever I am. So I can take lengths on a 45-degree, which is great. We've got the ability to take diameters and to do angles. And here with the radius, we actually have the ability to do a center at radius. Now this is really cool for a couple of reasons. One is that we can take our center at radius, we can center ourselves, for example, in this handicapped bathroom and make sure that with our center at radius, we do in fact meet the American Disability Act standards. And I probably should have dragged that around a little, but we'll center at radius this again. And there we go, now I've got the circle there. 2 feet, 6 inches. We've got plenty of room here for someone who's handicapped to get into this bathroom. This is also great for those of you guys who do site logistics plans. I love using this tool in my site logistics plans for cranes because you can take the crane length, draw it out, and then just move this around and make sure your crane's going to reach wherever you need it to. Or if you've got a lift or things like that, it really takes up that space. And then the final one that I want to talk with you about right now is I want to talk with you about the ability to count. Because we have a count tool. So you can come through and count all of the toilets, okay? So lots of different tools available here. Let's talk about some tips and tricks for using these tools faster because I've shown you a bunch of different takeoffs, but ultimately these have all been pretty manual. They're very similar to maybe what you've been doing in paper or some of the work that you might be doing with other software. So let's talk about how we're going to make this faster, because the goal today is to perform your takeoffs faster. And let's start performing takeoffs faster with a big one, and that big one is, how do we take area measurements of awkward rooms faster, or just awkward spaces in general? As you noticed, I did the electrical room here with lots of clicks. I could also come through and do this ramp, and I could do several clicks. So let me just show you real quick. I can come through. I'm going to give a click there, a click here, click here, click here, and click here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and curve these sections, so convert that to an arc, pull it into place. You'll notice it takes a little bit of time. I can do this all over the place. A right click, by the way, is your best friend. If you don't know how to do it in Revu, right click, there's probably a solution. So right click, I got this arc into place, but I still have to do it for all the other arced areas. What if there was a faster way to do it? I'm going to show you that faster way. It's a feature that's new for Revu 2017 called Dynamic Fill. When I turn Dynamic Fill on, what it does is it gives me the ability to define areas and add boundaries. So for example, if there's a doorway that has an opening that I don't want to fill in, I would define that boundary, and then I just take this paint bucket and I fill it up. And watch this. Done. A little fill there, a little fill here. Oops, there we go. And I might have a little overfilled, but that's okay. Let me come down here. Looks like my boundary's not great, so let's just define that boundary there. Now all I have to do, boundaries defined. I pick my area measurement. I can use a default measurement or a custom measurement. We'll talk about custom measurements in a moment. I can take a poly length, I can add a polygon or a perimeter measurement, and I can add what's called a space. And spaces are cool because spaces will track all of the measurements in an area to that specific region on the page. This is something, again, you could be setting up in advance to help you perform your takeoffs faster. For now, though, I will create it just so that I can show you what it looks like in the markup list later. I'm going to click apply, and look at that. I now have this measurement right here on the page. We also have our perimeter. So here's the perimeter measurement. Once again, I take that shift, I click the measurement, and I can pull it out. We could move this around, but there's the measurement, and that just took seconds. We can do the same thing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my boundaries. I'm actually going to make my boundary just a little thinner. I didn't love the thickness of the boundary on that last one. So I'm going to apply that here and then close up the settings. I'm going to define our boundaries, which are the doorways here. So I'm going to take this doorway here. I'm going to take this doorway here. And then once again, I'm just going to paint it in. Here we go. Paint that room, paint over the door. This time, I will use one of those custom tools. I'll talk to you about customizing tools in a second. But let's say I've got some carpet flooring that I want to use here. Maybe for my perimeter, I want to have a tile base or a rubber base here. Let's do rubber for this room. Click apply, and there we go. Now we have our carpet measurement. We have our rubber base measurement. All of that's been taken in just a couple of clicks here. Very easy to do. Dynamic Fill is going to be a huge time saver for you. Highly recommend giving this a try. If you're not on Revu 2017 yet and you're performing takeoffs, get Revu 2017 and give this a try, because it really does make the process of taking off rooms so much easier. So that's one way that we're going to save time using the measurement tools. Another way that we're going to save time using the measurement tools and performing our takeoffs is by performing our searches in batch, or performing searches to do our counts in batch. So you notice I counted all of these toilets individually, but what if I could have Revu count the toilets for me? I'm going to delete my toilet count, and I'm going to come into here in the tab access. I'm going to come into my search functionality, and I am going to take a visual representation of that toilet. So I'm just going to come in, zoom right in, get a nice, good shot of the toilet. Looks like I missed an edge there, and that's my fault this morning. So make a wider one. So, okay, we have our toilet. I'm going to search in the current document. I could just do this page. I could do all of my open documents, an entire folder of documents. So if you have a folder of documents you're taking off the toilets, take the whole folder. Click search. And what Revu is going to do is it's going to find every single toilet that's in here. And it's going through and it's looking at all of the toilets in the document. And it's saying, great, we've got all of these different toilets here. And it's taking its time because it's going to make sure that it's got toilets that are turned to the left, toilets that are turned to the right, toilets that are, for example, chilling upside down. It gives us, as I drag this out, and let me close Dynamic Fill for a second, it gives us a preview of all the toilets. Notice it caught these ones that were upside down. And now all we have to do to count them is to check them all, so they're all selected. Click this drop down and apply a count measurement tool them. Now we can apply just a standard count measurement, again, just like we did with that dynamic fill, or we can take one of these count measurements we pre-created and we can apply that to the toilet. And I'm going to show you right after this how we create these measurement tools to save us even more time as we go along. So I'm going to create this plumbing count tool. So here we go. I picked that one for the toilet and look, it's counted all the toilets. That is all of the bathrooms up here, and it got all of our toilets for us. Not a single one was missed. We could do this with sinks. We could do this with light receptacles. You name it. If we can get a nice clear image of it up here with this Get Rectangle feature, we can count it. Now, I don't see any questions in the question window, but if something does come up, do feel free to type that in there. We will do the live Q&A at the end. But go ahead, type them as they come up, and that way we can make sure that we get those covered for you. Great. So we've talked about the measurement tools at sort of a broad level, and some of the ways that we can speed up our takeoffs by using measurement tools in different ways. Let's talk about now how we speed up our takeoffs by customizing our measurement tools to have the features and properties that we need. Because if you probably noticed, right, I had sort of some custom settings going on here with the measurement that I applied here. We had some custom settings for this count tool here, and you're probably wondering, how do I get that to appear on my pages? Because it makes it so much easier looking at this page to know exactly what we've taken off, where those takeoffs are, what kinds of takeoffs they are. So I'm going to come in here, again, through tab access. Just want to show this to you so you know where to find everything in case something accidentally gets moved on you. And I'm going to come into our properties. Now the properties here has our file properties. And as I click different measurements, notice that there's a variety of different appearance properties that show up for those measurements. Now here's that toilet that we had set up. It's a green square, and we've got the label of toilet. Here, though, is our piping, right? We did that piping earlier with our poly length measurement. So let's go ahead and let's actually name this. So let's say subject is piping. And the label here might be the type of piping we have, right? So how thick is the pipe? So maybe these are 2-inch pipes, right? That's our diameter on the pipe. Great. So we can throw that through there. At this point, we've got a variety of different things that we can then change about this. So we can choose whether we show the caption or not for the label and the entirety. So we can turn off just the length. We could turn off that label and have just what we want to see here. The other thing that we can do here, of course, is we can change our colors. So I work at Bluebeam. I'm partial to the color blue, so I can make that text blue too. We could change our font or maybe that font size. Maybe 11 is a better font size for us. Oops. Here we go, 11. Or even 10. 10 looks great. And we can come through and change even our line style. So if you use different line styles to designate what types of pipes you have, you could do that here too, which makes it very easy for someone who's looking at this to know what type of piping you just took off. Now, in addition to some of this basic stuff, we've also got the ability to choose custom materials and material costs based on based on the custom columns we set up earlier. So here we had our custom columns, right? We made those materials, which are choices. Now, I don't have a material in here for the piping. I've got plumbing materials, and I've got a toilet, a sink, and a faucet, but I don't have a pipe. So maybe let's call this plumbing. Let's make 2-inch pipe. Okay, and per foot, we'll say that 2-inch pipe is $3.90. Come up with that. Make the subject plumbing. Okay. Let's take this pipe again. Let's name this plumbing. And watch now, as I name it plumbing, I have the ability down here now in materials to choose our 2-inch pipe. And it's going to apply the material cost based on the formula we set up. We'll look again at this formulas in a second. But I want you to see this custom, this ability to take the custom columns that we set up and assign them to this measurement now. Because when we save this and we reuse it, we're going to use this custom information. It's already going to be applied to it, which is really helpful. Now, one of the last things that we can do is we can go into the measurements tab and we can change some of the measurement information. Now, there's a basic depth that gets applied to any length measurement that gets taken. This is so that you can calculate wall area and things like that. So if this were a line for wall area, I might change this to feet and do it as like 10 feet, right? We have 10-foot walls. The one that I want you to pay attention to specifically for both our perimeter and poly length measurements and length measurements is this rise drop option. Because what rise drop allows you to do is it allows you to accommodate for a linear rise or drop that may happen with that particular item. So for example, with piping, we may have a drop of 10 feet to get us down to the next floor. So our drop may be 10 feet. Watch as I update this. I've updated this to 10 feet, and now we've got our length, which is 30 feet, 2.5 inches. That includes a rise or drop of 10 feet, right? So we're including this within the measurements that we take so that we can account for this, whether that's electrical wiring, piping, anything else that runs between floors that we need to accommodate for, we can take care of that right here. So this is what we're going to do with the poly length measurement and some of the customization here. Let's look at what we can do now with volume and area measurements. Those measurements work very similarly, so I'm just going to take our volume measurement because we have a couple more options here. Actually, we have the same options here. And let's start here. Notice that they look very similar, but we have a couple of different options. Let's start with our volume measurement. So, and I picked our perimeter on accident, so let's pick our volume for good measure. So with the volume, we of course have our depth. So if we wanted to make our depth again is 10 feet, watch, that looks like a much better cubic footage for this room, right? 37.2 or 372.1. That looks like our right setup here. We've also got the ability to come through and go back into our properties and change our appearances. So we can do, again, a nice blue color. We can also do fill colors, so maybe a lighter blue on the fill. We can highlight that so we see all of the content behind it. And we can even apply a hatch pattern. So if you've got multiple different types of volumes you're taking, maybe you want them all to be the same color, but they're going to have different hatch patterns. And those hatch patterns will determine what kind of volume measurement it is. So you can set that up here. And then you can easily change, for example, opacities or fill opacities just to make it a little lighter and easier to see things. I'm also going to change our text color here. Let's make that a really dark blue so it pops nicely. And we've got this pretty well customized. Now, just like the other one, I can make changes here that then allow us to, once again, change our materials and get those material costs applied. Now, with our area measurement, we also have, in addition to everything you saw here, which includes the ability to show our segment values, so we can show the perimeter segment values and even align those all horizontally so that they're easy to see, right? 8'8", 6'7", 8'8", and 6'7". Turn this off though, clean up our page. So in addition to that functionality, we've got the ability to show the center of our area. Of course, we can change our subjects and labels. And I'm, of course, changing text and all sorts of things as I go to scroll down here. So in our materials, right, we have all of the functions you've seen in the last ones. But in addition, we have the ability here within measurements to apply a slope. And that slope can be a pitch, a degree, or a grade. Now, when we're talking about the area of the elevator shaft, this probably isn't going to make a big difference for us, right? It's not going to be a large thing. But let's look back at our ramp that we took the area of a few minutes ago, right? So this is our area of our ramp. It's 911.1 square feet. Let's say that there's a grade to that ramp, right? Because we know that that ramp is going to be graded to gradually get everybody up into the airport. And let's say it's a 5% grade. When we update that grade, notice that the area updates. It's performing that math in the background. This is another new feature with Revu 2017 that will allow you to perform your takeoffs faster. Now, when we apply this information, either from the measurement or from the properties to our different takeoff tools, all of this gets saved with that tool in what's known as the tool chest. So I'm going to open our tool chest right now. And what you're going to notice here is under my recent tools, I have an area measurement. I'm going to place that area measurement, and it's an area measurement with that slope. It's just like this other area measurement, has all of the same information. Same thing, we have our volume measurement, the one that we did with the hatch pattern there. I've also got, right, here's our poly length that we used earlier. Okay, so if I choose our poly length, and there's our poly length, and it includes our rise drop, right? It saves all of that information. Revu tracks everything that we do in terms of our takeoffs and allows us to then take these tools and to move them into what are known as tool sets. Now, we have a tool set up top. This is my tools. These are just for me. They only show up for me, and they're custom to what I do. I've also got a tool here that my team created. I told you that my team created this profile. Well, when they exported that profile, just going to click the guy with the bow tie down here. When they exported it, they used this option, include dependencies, to include tool sets that they pre-created for me to use on this project. So you'll notice, and I'm just going to show you how easy this is to do. If you have the tool in recent tools or on your page, from recent tools, you just drag and drop. Here's my new plumbing tool here. Or here in the page, it's a right click, add to tool chest, and advanced material takeoffs. Once it's there, all you have to do, click the blue gear wheel, save, and export. You can send these tools to anyone working on this project, and they'll be able to perform their takeoffs with the exact same tools in Revu. Or you can just use the same tools again and again and again. And why is this so great? Because these tools have their subjects. They have labels already assigned to them. And if I were to select one of them and go into our properties here, custom measurement properties, in addition to all that, they've got the materials pre-assigned. So the material is already here. And if I were to place this, and I were to right click on it again, you'll notice that we can apply a layer. So if I were to apply a layer to it, so let me layer this, create new layer, plumbing. I'm going to go ahead and layer this one too for plumbing. And then I'm going to save these real quick to that tool chest. So advanced material takeoffs. And this one is also going to be advanced material takeoffs. Delete this one real quick. Now what you're going to see, when I place a new one and I right click it, that layer is already assigned. And if as I go and use those layers, I can turn these off now and no one will see them. So everything that we set up on these tools, we can assign to the tools, we can save with the tools. As we use these tools, all of those customizations will come through. This is a huge time saver. You want to talk about tips and tricks for saving time? Assign your layers, create your tools. I know I introduced the tools to you and then sort of showed these off, but go ahead and do this all in advance. Save it with the profile, export that profile, give everybody the same set of tools. And then when they go to do things, for example, like quantity takeoff, right? They wanted to do not quantity takeoff, dynamic fill, which is a type of quantity takeoff, right? So they're going to dynamic fill up here, right? You're just getting them to the point where they can just go ahead, they pour their paint bucket up here, right? Now all they have to do is here under area, they just click what they want to do for that area measurement. You know, maybe this is a tile floor in the vestibule. Maybe that perimeter, instead of being a rubber perimeter, is a tile base. And once they hit apply, all of that information just gets dropped straight onto the page there. So it makes it very easy to really get your takeoffs done fast. So we talked about taking off faster, but ultimately, why do we perform faster takeoffs? So we can make bids faster. And making bids faster means we need to get this information out of review and onto our bid sheet. I don't know about you, but in my last job, I spent a lot of time copying over manual measurements into Excel, right? It's the way we did things. Well, with review, every measurement that you take on the page is automatically being tracked in what's called the markups list here at the bottom. Markups list has every markup measurement that ever gets done on the page. And it has, again, those columns that we made sure were on and off. And it has all of our custom columns that we have set up. So we've got our material and our material cost. What you'll notice here is we've got some really cool stuff going on. Here's our area measurement. It's got our measurement. Review automatically adds in the height and width. If I turned on the volume, you would notice it's automatically tracking the volume and the wall area too. So just going to close this up. Here's our wall area. Here's our volume. So we've got all of these measurements being tracked for us. And because of the work that we did earlier, I can assign a material here. So let's rename this as flooring. And notice that as I rename that as flooring, one, it changes its position because it's sorted by the subject. But two, I now have got flooring options, and as I change them, so if this is concrete 01, notice that upgrades right there. Puts in that concrete price in there. Really quick and easy to do. All of the information we have here, as I mentioned, we can use any of these columns to create our formulas. So I talked briefly about it, but coming back into custom columns, let's look at that formula column a little more in depth. The formula column is an expression, and that expression is built just by typing. I'm going to rebuild this one, but watch as I type the letter M. You'll notice that it gives me all of the variables to choose from. So we have our constants and any functions. For those of you guys performing more difficult takeoffs, you can definitely do all of your sines and cosines you need. You've got all of the variables that are being tracked, right? We saw height and width, we saw length, volume, wall area. Right now, I'm going to take just the generic measurement, which is going to be for an area, it'll be area measurement. For a volume, it'll be the volume measurement. So it'll take that, and then we'll multiply it by that new material column. We can choose our currency, or whether we want to do a percentage. We can choose how many decimal places we want. We can choose what our currency is. Nice thing about Canada is you guys also use dollars, so we can use dollars here. Yours are Canadian and ours are US, but yeah, it's mostly the same. And click OK. And click OK, and we've got that put together. So very easy for us to create estimates here. Now, this is the way that we wanted to get our estimates put together. We could create additional formula columns. We could multiply by a number. So we don't have to take a variable. So for example, if I know I want a 20% markup, I can do times 1.2, right? We'll do our 20% markup. Everything's now marked up 20%. We could do an extra column for that. and then export this stuff either with CSV to Excel or to PDF. We could also just export this to Excel on our own. We could even print this as a summary to paper. What I want to show you, though, is how we're going to do this faster. So assuming that you're not going to be building a custom formula column and performing your estimates in Revu because you already have a bid sheet put together, how do you get your information from here into your bid sheet in Excel? Well, I'm happy to say with Revu Extreme version 2017, it is an Extreme-only feature in Revu 2017, we now have the ability to link the information here to a bid sheet. And what you're going to notice, I'm going to come back into Revu. I'm going to sort real quickly by our material, okay, so that we can see carpet, concrete, etc. Put this on half of the screen, put our bid on the other half, and look, here's carpet 1. Carpet 1 is 308.3 square feet. That's 308.3 square feet there. Let's say that I were to assign a new flooring one to carpet. So let's say this one, I've got it assigned as concrete. Let's say this should also be carpet 1. As I change that to carpet 1, watch, concrete, actually I don't have concrete hooked up, but notice that my carpet 1 amount, when we click back in here, is going to, should update, give it a second. Oh, I've clearly crashed something in Excel today. My apologies, running a little too much. But typically what it would do is that it would update that carpeting to match carpet 1. Let's go ahead, let's change that back to the concrete that it was, concrete 01. Let's actually attach concrete here. Attaching a link is really easy to do, so I'm going to edit this up. And I'm going to say that for this section, I want the total area of the material, and that material should be concrete 01. Click OK, and as I do that, here we go. Oh, you know what it is? It's my subject. So my subject or my label here for this one is concrete, and that's why it didn't show up. Let's change this one to the material. Knew I was doing something on my end. So this one, see, that's labeled carpet 01. That label can also come into play here. Let's do it by the material though. If I do that by carpet 1 material, and now let's take this one and let's change it to carpet 1. There we go. Now we've got the update there of the carpet 1 amount. Automatically does it. As you add new markups, it'll automatically do it. So let's add a new carpeting markup. There's our carpet. There's a new carpet 01 and automatically updates. So this really makes things easy for us. The best part of this all is that once you set this up, using your custom column information, using your tool sets, right? We built the tool sets, everything that's with this particular profile. Once you set this up, you can open a new document and you can use that new document to fill this out. So let's call this my bid template, right? I'm going to open a complete material takeoff. Notice here, right? I've got a complete takeoff here. I've got a complete takeoff in terms of information here. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click, quantity link. I'm going to change my source file. So I'm going to delete this one. I am going to add from my folder my completed material takeoff. And it's going to automatically update with all of the information that you see here. You set this up once, you set up your template, and you can use this as many times as you want. You want to talk about saving time. Your bid template can be set up with your documents, can be set up with your tool sets. All you do, you send out that profile, you make sure that the custom columns are appearing on your document, and you literally link the document to the bid sheet, and then you do a save as. So save as. This is our bid for a 1.1.1. Bid's done. With that, we have hit the hour. I have taken all of the time. Before we get into the live Q&A, just a quick little recap here, right? We talked about our setup, the interface, calibration, custom columns, putting together our layers, making our measurement tools, tool sets work, some tips and tricks for that, and then doing sort of our estimate creation work, both in the markups list and using quantity link. I do want to thank you all so much for coming, and I want to thank SolidCAD so much for hosting us. We're going to go into a live Q&A in just a second, but I want to make sure you have their information in case you have to run, and give Dan an opportunity to wrap up and make sure that you have his information so you can get in contact with him.
Thanks, Meredith. So if you guys have any questions, you can post on the chat module here on the GoToWebinar, and we'll answer them.
Perfect. And of course, if you'd like a free 30-day trial, or you need to buy the software, or you want to get some training or additional support and services, I know SolidCAD can do all of that for you.
Yep, I mean, actually, we have a nice half-day training on Bluebeam estimation. So we've run this a few times here in Toronto. So if you already have some experience with Bluebeam, but just kind of have to up your estimation game, we can set up a half-day session to go through the custom workflow that would be applicable to your line of work. We also have certified training for document management and Bluebeam Basics as well, which is a one-day training session.
Fantastic.
Cool. So we'll stay on the line for a couple minutes. If you have any questions, just ask them in the chat box. And otherwise, that kind of wraps up the webinar today. Thank you very much, everyone.
Great. So we got a fun question in here. Our first question for today is, can you assign more than one material to an item? For example, for flooring, can you add concrete, reinforcing steel, etc.? And the answer to that is yes, but you're going to have to create an extra column. So essentially, let's say that I want to assign multiple materials here. So I'm going to add another material. So this will be material 2, and it'll be a choice. I'm just going to add a couple of them here. So for example, this should be reinforcing steel. That subject would be flooring. I don't know the price of reinforcing steel off my head, so I'm just not going to put a price in there. It would be well off, you know, or maybe this could be our subfloor. Also flooring, we want to attach those all to the same measurement. We could make a material 2 column, or we could make even a material 3, a material 4. And for each column that we add, so if I click OK here and create that new column, you'll notice that as I added that new column, it went ahead and hit it all the way over on the right-hand side. So let's bring that over. So let's come down to our flooring markup. So maybe these ones need reinforcing steel and these ones need subfloors. We could do that. We can have as many columns as we want. And of course, if I come in here, so if I pick our carpet flooring here, notice as I highlight the tool in the tool set here, that I can then come in and change the properties for it here. So here we go. Here's our material 2. Ooh. So now every time that we place carpet 01, I want subfloor to show up for it. So I'm going to place carpet. I'm going to place it again, and then pull this up just to show you that that did in fact attach. So I'm going to hit escape. Here's that first one, carpet 01. Notice it's got that new subfloor. And this one's also got the subfloor. So we can assign as many of these as we want, and then we can make as many material cost columns as we want. So we could easily have a material 1, material 2, material 3 that's assigned, and then we could have a material 1 cost, a material 2 cost, a material 3 cost, which would allow you to assign as much as you want to a single takeoff that you do. Great questions. Okay. Here's another great one. Wondering if there's a way to protect a PDF file created with Bluebeam to display it as read-only so client couldn't, for example, modify it. Now this is a great one, right? You've completed your takeoff. You want to send the sheet that you've done your takeoff with, or just you otherwise want to send a sheet to the client. So I'm just going to clean this one up, right? This is our sheet. We've got all of our takeoffs. We don't want the client to modify it, but we want the client to see the work that's been done and what all has been performed here. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, also available, I believe, under Document up here. Yep, and under Security. But I like to use the little lock in the right-hand corner. There's this little lock, and when you click the lock, you've got the ability to change permissions and password protect the document. So you can require a password to open the document if this is something secure, or just require a password in order to do other permissions. So this will be my password. You don't have to do anything fancy for passwords. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say that this document can be printed by the client, and it can be printed in high resolution. And if I have any form fields or digital signature fields, those form fields and digital signature fields can be filled in, but they can't copy text or graphics, and they can't extract content for accessibility. Now we can use a basic 128-bit AES, or we can go up to 256-bit encryption on this. When we choose our encryption level, we click OK. I'm going to save this document. I'm going to save it as, because I'm going to hate myself if I save the document and then I forget what the password is and can never fix it. But I've saved this document. Notice now I've got this lock here with permissions set on the PDF. I'm going to close it and reopen it. So let's come in here, reopen that document. And notice now, when I come into markup, all my markup tools are grayed out. All my measurement tools, if I try to use them, won't let me use them. It doesn't actually place that on the page. It gives me an error. And that's because it's password protected now. So they can't change it. Notice these markups are all locked. So like this measurement, if I select a measurement, they can't move it. They can't change it. They can just see what's on here. So lots of abilities to password protect these documents from your customers. And note that even when they're password protected, you can still use them for your quantity link. So you could still have it tied to your Excel bid sheet, have all those updated data sets. You just, people wouldn't be able to change it from here. So great questions there. Let's see, were there any other questions? I'll hang out a moment in case you were thinking of something and hadn't had a chance to type it in yet. Okay.
Cool. I think maybe that's our cue to kind of end the webinar today on time.
Great.
Cool. If you guys have any questions, you guys can email SolidCAD or Bluebeam. We'll be happy to help you out. If you need any support, demos, trials, purchasing Bluebeam, training, or anything related Autodesk-wise, please don't be shy to get in contact with either Dan or Joanne. Our contact information is right here on the screen. We are more than happy to help you. Okay? Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And we're just going to mute our speakers and mic here, and we'll leave the Bluebeam slide here on. Okay? Thank you again.